while much needed, there is fear that the protests will go in the way that most viral things go viral. It has a big surge and then will fizzle out and become distant memory. A memory that didn't go very far, be forgotten about, and will be out of the media to make way for the next viral story. The true work goes much deeper than a hashtag or the chanting. The learning must come from white people who call themselves allies by doing the research, seeking the vast library of education created by black scholars and leaders, and do not ask black people to do the work and teach them. So, let's just get into it. That is the words by Naomi Nicholas Williams. I will link the full article below. So, by now, I'm sure you would have all been really made aware through the news, probably more on social media, but the reality of the police brutality issue that we have all over the world, and the oppression that black people face and Indigenous people face on a daily basis. Now, I welcome people to call me out if I get things wrong, because that's how I'm going to learn, and I deeply apologise if I have said something ignorant, and I welcome to be called out, and I want to do better. And I'm not afraid I'm not going to let that fear of getting it wrong keep me silent. So, we know that all of these people dying aren't accidents, and we know that they're not isolated incidents. But why do these keep happening? I just listened to the new episode by Call Your Girlfriend, which I will link below, where Marine Kaba was on the episode, and she said this, and I wanted to also, I think it answers why these things keep happening really clearly. If you don't understand the function of policing, you don't understand what the cops are for. The cops exist to contain particular groups of people for the interests for the ruling class, and to protect the property of the ruling class. If you understand the function of the police, then you don't have to ask why these things keep happening. So, we know that these things are happening because of systemic racism. But what is systemic racism? I'm sorry if I keep looking at my laptop. I'm just reading all of this research. So, systemic racism is also known as institutional racism, is a form of racism expressed in the practice of social and political institutions. It is reflected in disparities regarding wealth, income, criminal justice, employment, housing, healthcare, political power, and education, among other factors. In the Metro article that I'm going to link below, I took this quote. They said, "It describes when racism becomes so ingrained, it's seen as normal." Then, from the same article, the term institutional racism first came about in 1967 when it was used by Stokely Carmichael and Charles V. Hamilton in Black Power. The politics of liberation, it entered the British vocabulary in the Macpherson report, which examined the killing of Stephen Lawrence, who died in 1997 in a racist attack. The report defined the term as the collective failure of an organisation to provide an appropriate and professional service to people of their colour, culture or ethnic origin. It can be seen or detected in processes attitudes and behaviours which amount to discrimination through unwitting prejudice, ignorance, thoughtlessness, and racist stereotyping which disadvantage minority ethnic people. And the reason why systemic racism exists is because of white supremacy. What is white supremacy, I hear you ask? I can't make jokes right now. White supremacy or white supremacism is the racist belief that white people are superior to people of other races and therefore should be dominant over them. And as you probably know by my voice, I am based here in the UK. And what's something that keeps popping up throughout the last few weeks has been, oh, well, it's not that much of a problem here because our policemen don't have guns. And people just keep saying it's a problem that happens in America, it's not a problem here. But I think what the awful, unjust death of George Floyd can teach us all that think that way is police don't need guns to kill someone. So I found this this article written by Kojo Koram that I will also link below, and there's so much, I feel like I could read the whole article to you, but I'm going to leave the whole thing down below. And the article is called Systemic Racism and Police Brutality Are British Problems Too. I mean, in that article there's just a few of the awful cases that we have here in the UK. So this is very much a problem that we have here. For example, Jimmy Mubenga, aged 46, died on the 12th of October 2010 after security guards attempted to deport him on a British Airways flight. He died after being restrained by three guards. An inquest into his death found that he had been unlawfully killed, but the immigration officers were later acquitted of manslaughter. In 2017, 20-year-old Rashan Charles also lost his life, this time in Hackney, East London, after being restrained by a police officer and choking on a package of caffeine and paracetamol in his mouth. The same year, another young black man, 25-year-old Edson DaCosta, died in a very similar circumstances to Charles. Just down the road in Newham, the inquest held both Charles and DaCosta's death ultimately cleared and the arresting officers of responsibility. It goes on. It goes on. And he also covers in this article that the last time a police officer was successfully prosecuted in the UK concerning the death of somebody in custody was 1969. Though the numbers of deaths following police contact are thankfully not as bad in the UK as the US, we should be anything but complacent when it comes to our own structural problems with racism or policing. Institutional racism exists at every level of our criminal justice system, from who gets stopped and searched to who gets arrested, to who gets charged and who gets convicted. So, I'm a white person. What can we do about this? Well, I hope by now you have an idea, but if you haven't, I'm just going to go through all of the things that I have found over the last few weeks that I have learned from what our response as white people should be to this. The first thing we have to do is listen. I'm going to list loads of people down below. It's so important to listen to a diverse range of black voices. Listen to the black community. Don't DM anyone. All of the information you need is out there. It is not your responsibility to ask black people to teach you one-on-one about racism. People have been talking about this for way longer than I'm sure you've been on this planet. All the information is out there. So it's so vital that we educate ourselves. The system here in the UK, the school system, does a really great job at maintaining that we don't know about this. Because, like I said earlier on, right at the top, like Maureen said, there's a reason why we don't get taught about this. Educate yourself. I'd really recommend if you're starting, to go take a look at Happy Danny. Oh, Happy Danny on Instagram. She has 3 wonderful educational IGTVs that include a beautifully illustrated presentation, and I'd really think that is a great starting point on this journey. And I've got a link to questions you should ask yourself as a white person when posting online about racism, which is written by Caroline Pritchard. Read the books. Just a few that have been spoken about non-stop. Read this book. Rennie also has an incredible podcast, which I really encourage you all to listen to as well. I just bought this off recommendations from so many people. Race and Class in the Ruins of the Empire. I mean, these are both very directed to Britain. The Good Immigrant was a gift that I loved reading last year, and these two, Rennie's book and The Good Immigrant, are ones that people, there's also a petition to get these onto the school curriculum, so I'll leave that petition down below. So those two are great ones to start with. We're also on The Good Eggs. I'll link it down below. We're reading this as part of our book club. It's beautifully illustrated, written by Tiffany Jewell, who I'll leave her Instagram down below, and illustrated by Aurelia Durand. And it is just this is really suitable for kids as well, for young people or visual people, if you're an illustrator like me. I really love this, and this has actionable tips, so I think that this is also a great starting point. I'm also going to leave a link below to an incredible bookshop which celebrates multicultural books, and is a black owned business based in London, where you can also buy this book from. I'll leave a link below. I'm currently listening to White Fragility. Why it's so hard for white people to talk about racism. I'd really encourage you to get that one too. It's so important to donate. I'm gonna leave a thing that I posted down below, which was all the big companies that are Trump's biggest supporters. That involves New Balance, Estee Lauder. Like, you'll be surprised. And to all the people who were so shook when Trump got elected, you need to watch this list, because this is the whole reason why people like him get power and why bad people get power, because they don't function alone. They're being supported by a huge I don't know if ecosystem is the word, but they're supported by tons and tons of companies. So that's why it's so important to distribute your wealth. I'm going to leave a bunch of the incredible people I've been following on Patreon, because Also on that list is the companies that are supporting Trump. Trump's biggest supporters also include Facebook and Instagram. So Patreon is a wonderful way to support people because Patreon aren't on that list. PayPal is on that list. So just so important to have all this information, and that is why it's so important to distribute your wealth to Black-led organisations and people champion change in this, because money is power. Like, money is power. Money is power. If you don't have money, I'm going to leave a list of videos where all the AdSense that the video generates, the money is going to charities, also supporting the cause. So just there's a bunch of those videos, and if you just don't skip through the ads, that will generate money that will be donated. You can also stream and buy this song called Black Man's Burden by Bruce Throwdown, which is raising money for Stephen Lawrence Foundation and Black Lives Matter UK. Share it with your friends. It's a really great song. And another thing you can do is go to protests. I also have been making an appearance at these protests in London. And protests are so important, and I also understand that not everyone can go to a protest, especially right now in a pandemic. I just wanted to share some things that I found online by this account, Spring Magka. Here's a list of some of the impressive accomplishments made since protests for George Floyd began. And I'll leave that below. A couple of the things are 4 officers have been fired and for the murdering of George Floyd. Louisville mayor suspends no-knock warrants in response to police's. If you don't know about no-knock warrants, please go check out Casey Neistat's video where he talks about what the Black Lives Matter protests are protesting, and he shares a story of why, of how that was used unfairly, disgustingly unfairly. 2 abusive officers have been fired for pulling a couple out of a car and tasing them. Minneapolis public schools end contract with police. I mean, the list just goes on. This is like 5 slides of just like text. So if you're someone who really is like, protests are BS and they don't do anything, you need to watch that. Read the whole thing. Protests are so important, but it is also so important to keep the momentum up and the energy up after the protests. So another thing you can do is write to your MP. I will leave a template down below. Everything is going to be down below. You basically just have to copy and paste it and send it to your own MP. That is actually really important. I learned that through the Free Periods movement, how important it is to write to your MP. So even though it may feel like you're one person and that might not make a difference, your MP will be reading every single email. And every time I've written to my MP, I'm in Buckinghamshire, so I have a really conservative area, and so I sometimes feel like it's not worth it and like nothing will ever change. But every time I've written to my MP, I've always got a very, very long response back. So really, that is also really, really important. Engage with your peers who you see aren't using their voice. I've written a template called Kindly Call Them Out. If you go to nat-b.com/kindly call them out, you'll find a template that I've used to call my peers out very often. I've had some really positive, I've only had positive reactions from me emailing a few people. I understand that brands and some of the stuff that's come out, not everyone deserves to be kindly called out. Some people deserve to be publicly called out. But my peers in my industry, especially white people, I know because I'm also uncomfortable. a lot of people find it very uncomfortable to talk about race. So I have got a lot of DMs of people calling people out and getting blocked. But I think that that's an enormous way that white people can use their white privilege to actually engage in conversations, and to share resources, and to, you know, some people unfortunately do need their hand held in this, and they do need someone to kind of like look over their shoulder and be like, okay, no, that caption's okay. And I've been looking over people's captions and looking over people's ideas and stuff, because we don't get taught race in schools, and I'm learning just as much as everyone else. So I'd really recommend, if you see someone that you have seen talk about other issues like mental health or feminism, use that template. Email, I think, is the best, because often in DMs you can get quite like a haphazard response, and I have heard that within white people there is suddenly becoming this this intense kind of call out culture, which I think personally for me, I don't mind being called out because I want to learn and I want to grow, and I also have, I guess, because I'm already doing the work but I think, I don't know, I just wrote that template. I found an amazing response when I've sent that out, so I would encourage other people to who are white to use their privilege really well, and I think that that's an amazing way of using it. The things I have learned, I've learned so much. I have learned about performative allyship. I'm so sorry, I'm going to completely ruin this name. Sarut K. Chawla, London-based traumatic-informed integrative psychotherapist. I'll link them below. They have this incredible brain spider diagram with performative allyship in the middle and all the other things that mean what that means. Additionally, they have amazing set of resources all on their page. I'd really encourage you to go and have a browse through that. I've learned that being an ally is messy. I've learned that being called out is okay, because that's how we grow. If anyone's going to call me out when I'm talking about race, I will listen, and I respect anyone's time, because I know, I acknowledge that being called out takes time out of someone's day. I just encourage it because I want to do better, and I don't want my fear of not talking about this stop me from talking about it. And so that means I'm going to have to get comfortable being uncomfortable and get comfortable at the idea of me messing up. I've learned more about how I can use my white privilege. I think I definitely hid behind being a Latina. I've also learnt being more concerned right now with your own feelings when you're white. That is white supremacy. I've also learnt that J.K. Rowling is cancelled. So all the resources and information that I've covered, plus more, are going to be down in the description. Additionally, there'll be stuff on my highlights on my Instagram. It is not Black people's or Indigenous people's jobs to teach us about racism. That is our responsibility as white people. All the information is out there, and frankly, I speak as one of them. White people have been very lazy, and I'm committed to doing the work. And this isn't just going to be one video and I'm done. That's my piece on the matter. That's it. I'm never going to talk about it again. No. This is This is not going to be returning back to normal or whatever that was before. I will definitely be integrating this moving forward into my everyday, because Black Lives Matter. And things aren't going to change overnight. Let me know what your thoughts are on this. I'm happy to answer any questions on the matter. If you really feel like you need some questions answered, please don't DM black influencers or black activists. If you really have a pressing question that you can't Google, I'm more than happy to answer it. I am still learning and I'm white, but I've been doing that on my Instagram, and it usually is the same kind of questions keep popping up. But yeah, I have been answering questions, so I've highlighted some of them. So I'd strongly also encourage you to look at my highlights. Please donate if you are making money right now off in any way during this time. I'd really encourage you to donate. If you have £10, you can buy the print, My White People Say Work to Do list. All the money plus some of my own is going to be going to the Black Visions Collective, which is a really incredible charity that I'm very glad to be supporting. And yeah, I think that's it. I'm sending so much love to everyone right now. The only way things will change is if we're all in it together, and I encourage you, whether you have read these books or this is the first kind of movement that you're seeing being witnessed, no matter how much politics you've brought into your life before, I'd really hope that you can join me as in this together. Yeah, I think that's it. Peace and love, and let's do this.